So this is the 0710 GMT edition of the Khoodeelaar television channel, broadcasting under the banner of the BabyAngelGeronimo editions on Saturday, 6th of May 2023. This is part A of the program. We didn't broadcast anything on this channel or platform on the Friday, the 5th of May. Now, this one, we are continuing part of the essay that we have started in examining item by item, word for word, the evilness called evilly mate lies. Her published name is Emily Maitleys, but because of her behavior, her record of lying, conspicuous, accessible online, we have assigned her a more appropriate name, evilly, evil with evilness, and mate lies. We're just retaining part of the name, mate, part of the family name, and calling her lies, just readjusting the LIS by adding an E after the I. And it is absolutely spot on. Emily mate lies. Evilly mate lies. Evilly mate lies is one of those BBC platform people, because her name, she got her name recognition and everything based on the fact that she was employed by the BBC, whether it was a freelance basis or as a full-time basis. Without the platform BBC or the platform of the BBC being allowed to be made available to her, evilly mate lies would not have the same accessibility. Now, what she is doing in this piece, published in the first person in the Sunday Times of 30th of April 2023, headed, I worry how much my Andrew interview hurt his daughters. Now check if it can be captured by the camera. Is it? Well, let's struggle. We struggle and we see if we can get this page seen by the camera. There is a technical reason for the difficulty. Now, that is the only angle. So that is what we have been broadcasting about and posting tweets about. Now, this is very important. When there is this outcry, which is a routine outcry expressed in Fleet Street and the parts of the other parts of the West. For example, this one, the weekend I newspaper. Is it going to be seen by the camera at all? It's very difficult to place it on before the camera. Okay, so this is the weekend edition, that is the Saturday and Sunday edition of the I newspaper, and they've got a regular columnist or correspondent. It's one of the sons of Claude Cockburn, either Patrick or Alexandra. The Cobburns, with the Irish name, and Claude Cockburn was active in the 1930s when he, with his wife Patricia Cockburn, launched the very short-lived print weekly called The Week, and it became, according to reports afterwards, very influential within the British circle, the British establishment. And the reason why the week became influential is said to be to do with the access that Claude Cockburn secured or established with the British government. In fact, all the accounts say that he was able to gain access into what is called Whitehall, the main street near Trafalgar Square, after which the UK's central government department's permanent employees are known, Whitehall. This is not, that street is not where most of the UK central government departments are situated in, but that is the name Whitehall that actually carries the collective activities of the so-called civil service. Now it's Patrick Cockburn, and this one is on page 36 under opinion, and he says press freedoms are under siege throughout the world, and the actual focus, visual focus in the picture is of course on Turkey. And culturally, the British, the Irish, the French, the German, the Americans, culturally, absolutely dedicated against Turkey. And this is not an exception. And there is a highlight saying control of the media has become vital for dictators to stay in power. Now, this is neither original nor really authentic, because control of the media is not only exerted, or control over the media is not exerted only by dictators. And secondly, the media that is not overtly controlled by the regime in any country in the West doesn't need to be controlled because it is already serving the cause of the regime and the narrative. But this one is the second item or second organ that has done any full length piece about the media. Last week, the Financial Times ran the piece. Let's check the actual heading that the Financial Times, weekday Financial Times, not the weekend Financial Times, read about the media. The Financial Times published a piece by Martin Wolf, and I think it's very significant because of the crocodile tears that Martin Wolf sheds about democracy. Because remember, this is coming within weeks of dirty digger Rupert Murdoch, who owns the American Fox News, paying almost $1 billion to the Dominion voting system as part of an out of court settlement in order to avoid an actual trial of the defamation action brought by Dominion voting system against Murdoch's Fox News. So here is the item by Martin Wolf, and it's published under economics. And the subheading is One has to hope the electorate and judiciary will remain robust against future efforts at subversion. The main heading is Media Lies Erode Bedrock of Democracy. Now, I don't know whether this one is going to show on the screen on the camera. Nah, well, it's very, very difficult because it's all glasses and mirrors. So Martin Wolf has written the piece. Let's check to find the piece in any other form that may be accessible. Okay. So this is the main piece. that Wolf has published. It's across one, two, three, four, five, 6 columns of the FT. And the FT is kind of its shape is what can be called broadsheet, not tabloid. And the graphics, the one graphics says lies, lies, lies in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And surrounding these words, lies, 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 repeated so many times, surround a platform showing the transmitters that transmit the broadcast content. So, what the Financial Times is saying is the media lies eroding bedrock of democracy, which is mainly about the settlement by Fox News. And the reason why Fox News settled the defamation claim brought against it by Dominion electoral voting system, that is the counting of the voting votes, is because Dominion had consistently published the accurate result of the election in 2020. And Fox News distorted that and accused the counted numbers of or the Dominion, the origin or the source of the counted votes, accused it of lying, making up. That is to say, it accused Dominion of colluding with Joe Biden. Now, the main conclusion in Martin Wolf's piece, this is the paragraph that I shall read in full. One has to remember three big things about the market economy. The first and most fundamental is that one must not do everything that is profitable. Indeed, there has to be a lengthy list of activities one is not entitled to do. The second is that some of the things one must not do might be legal or, if contrary to law, hard to prevent. The last and most important, therefore, is that the survival of a civilized society depends on moral restraint, particularly from its leading figures. In 1954, Joseph Nye Welch, chief counsel, that is the lawyer, for the United States Army, responded to the red baiting of Senator Joe McCarthy by asking Joe McCarthy, "Have you no sense of decency, sir?" Unquote. Free societies will die if those with influence, wealth, and power lack that virtue. Well, the Washington Post, which has been owned by Jeff Bezos for some years, has got the bombastic pretend slogan on top of it. And its says that in the dark, freedom or whatever, I'll come to that and I'll actually correct the actual quotation, dies. Now, the Financial Times on the 30th of April and Patrick Coburn in the I newspaper today, the 6th of May 2023. And let's check the Washington Post, what its banner says, the pretend banners. Because it's being owned by Jeff Bezos is itself a contamination. Okay, it says democracy dies in darkness. All right. But the Washington Post is completely out of order to assume that this slogan, attributed to Shani George, the communications director, well, an explanation, let's say, Let's read that from the beginning. Shani George, the newspaper's communications director, said that the phrase had been used internally within the company for years before being officially adopted. Democracy Dies in Darkness was the first slogan to be officially adopted by the Washington Post in its 140-year history. And there is an entry on Wikipedia on that very slogan. Now it says, Democracy Dies in Darkness is the official slogan of the American newspaper, The Washington Post, adopted in 2017, 6 years ago. The slogan was introduced on the newspaper's website on the 22nd of February 2017 and was added to print copies a week later. Upon its announcement, the slogan generated significant reaction, both positive and negative, from other news organizations and various media figures. The Washington Post first unveiled the slogan via Snapchat on February the 17th, 2017, when it launched its Snapchat Discover platform intended for reaching younger readers before adding it to its website under the newspaper title. Shani George, the newspaper's communications director, said that the phrase had been used internally within the company for years before being officially adopted. Democracy Dies in Darkness was the first slogan to be officially adopted in the Washington Post in its 140-year history. According to the newspaper, the phrase was popularized by investigative journalist Bob Woodward. Woodward used the phrase in a 2007 piece criticizing government secrecy and referenced the phrase during a 2015 presentation at a conference when he talked about The Last of the President's Men, his book about the Watergate scandal. Woodward said he did not coin the phrase himself, instead attributed the phrase to a judge ruling on a First Amendment case, believed to be from Circuit Judge Damon Keith. The paper's owner, Jeff Bezos, who attended Woodward's 2015 presentation, also used the phrase in a May 2016 interview. The newspaper said it decided to adopt an official slogan in early 2015. This started a process which involved a small group of newspaper employees meeting to develop ideas for slogans. The group eventually settled on Democracy Dies in Darkness after brainstorming over 500 options. The slogan appeared at the end of the Post's Super Bowl commercial in 2019, narrated by Tom Hanks. The commercial was the newspaper's first ever Super Bowl ad. Now, there is a longer description about this, and there is a picture of Bob Woodward, of course, who is given credit for popularizing the phrase. Now, going back to the Financial Times and Martin Wolf, who says, media lies erode bedrock of democracy. And then today's newspaper, where Patrick Coburn, his piece is headed, Press freedoms are under attack, under siege throughout the world. And this is a piece that is carried with a picture of a protest outside the Kanal Tag and Bugun television building in Istanbul in 2015, following a police raid of a media company. This picture is credited to Reuters news agency. Now, the last paragraph in Patrick Coburn's piece reads as follows: Draconian punishment of critics and a direct or indirect grip on media outlets are supplemented by sophisticated state propaganda offensive. The media are always a weapon in somebody's hands, but governments will always fight to make sure that those hands are their own. Now, of course, Patrick Coburn is a comparatively less guilty writer on Fleet Street and a British kind of journalist. But he is not innocent because Patrick Coburn is part of the operation of the I newspaper and other outlets whose culture is hostile to Muslims, and the choice of Turkey is not an accident. Choice of Turkey is not an accident because in terms of numbers of journalists harassed, intimidated, obstructed, punished, in terms of that number of people being penalized, the number of people that have been obstructed by the regime concerned in Turkey is comparatively much smaller than the number of journalists, opposition campaigners being harassed, intimidated, silenced in India, for example. Of course, that is an explanation based on the number of people that live in India. Turkey, in terms of the demography, is much smaller. But the point is not about the comparison between the numbers of people in India and Turkey. The point is that the British media will never use India as an example of the badness that they are using Turkey as. And that goes back to the use of Turkey to add that much weight to the Brexit vote on the referendum in June 2016 because of the liars who promoted the idea that Brexit was necessary in order to avoid Turks invading Syria. So Turkey is a raw and very explosive, very emotive word in the vocabulary of the Western cultures. I am no fan of the Turkish regime, never have been. I cannot be a fan of any regime because of my record and my activities and my ideas, which are opposed to lies of all kinds. But the point is that they're making the intentional selection of Turkey as a bad example or as an example of badness. They're not talking about India, and they most certainly are not talking about the regime in Saudi Arabia or the regime in Israel. Both Israel and Saudi Arabia have got many times worse examples of brutally suppressing journalists and opposition than Turkey has. Turkey is not innocent, but Turkey, as compared to Israel and Saudi Arabia, is less oppressive and less dictatorial. But Patrick Coburn would not admit that, nor would Martin Wolf in the Financial Times. There is a 1500 years long campaign going against Muslims from the West. Of course, 1500 years ago, the number of Muslims on the planet was very small. The number has increased. But as soon as Muslims were recognized, identified, let's say, as having established an Islam-based cultural atmosphere, they were targeted by the Crusaders. And this crusade is continuing. And it has been continuing by even denying the massacres of the Muslims in Spain, as compared to the genocide, the Holocaust, that is widely but misleadingly attached by the Western commentators to the Jewish people as being the main victims, because there were other people as well. In addition to the Jewish people, the other people were victimized and genocided and gas chambered and holocausted by the Nazis in Germany. So the Muslims are being genocided even as we speak today in China, in Burma, and the genocide policy is operated against the Palestinians. You are not supposed to say by who. That fact that you cannot say who is murdering, massacring the Palestinians is a stunning, undeniable evidence of the idea, the slogan of press freedom in the West being a joke. It never does exist. In the United Kingdom, there have been several royal commissions looking at the British press. And as I have said, and as I do say, World exclusively originally about the United Kingdom's fetish for public inquiries, royal commissions. These are jokes. These are serious brainwashing instruments to tell lies to the people and condition the subjects to the lies, and they become then the reproducers of the lies and the repeaters of the lies. But several royal commissions have been held in the United Kingdom in the last 100 years about the conduct of the British media, mainly the Fleet Street. And they have not produced any change because they have not told the truth. Now, coming forward with the so called inquiries and treating Louis Casey's so called review into the London Metropolitan Police, it is the same. What the press itself uses, the phrase Damning report, damning review is a lie. Damning what? I mean, damning meaning what? Damning leading to what action? What rigor? What accountability? Nothing. And the same goes back to Leslie Scarman, who published his report in the so-called the Brixton so-called riot 42 years ago. And in the very week of that report being published, I addressed a UK-wide conference organized with my initiative under the auspices of the Commission for Racist Enslavement, CRE, which was, let's say, within quotation marks, persuaded by me to hold that conference. And Scarman failed to tell the truth against racist Britain, racist state, as did Macpherson later about allegedly looking into the Metropolitan Police's racist behavior over the duties that they neglected after Stephen Lawrence was murdered by a gang of racists in Eltham in southeast London in April 1993. So you've got Scarman report, Macpherson report, and there are other reports about the media as well. The reason why these reports and inquiries lead to no change is because the participants in the inquiry, participants in the main decision making, as well as the reporters, the platforms broadcasting, publishing the facts of the so called reports and inquiries, do not vary in their attitude and outlook to the world, on the world. They're all racist, they're all corruptly imperialistic, and they're unapologetic about the racism, about the nasty culture, about the nasty party that Theresa May admitted 30 years ago the Conservative Party was. Well, she admitted, the publicly admitted about 21, 22 years ago, but she knew the nasty party had existed. She knew that for a decade or longer before she actually spoke. So the academies, the academic institutions, the universities are as corrupt, as dishonest, as racist, as untruthful as are the judiciaries. So the Martin Wolf in the Financial Times talking about the judiciary is in fantasy land. The Martin Wolf, compared to the average age of the Financial Times writers, is a senior in terms of age chronologically. But he doesn't seem to have understood what he has been witnessing and writing about as in his career, quite profitable, well paid career, as a commentator, as a journalist. And he clearly has no evidence in his piece or pieces in his writing, his journalism, of having observed the behavior of the judges, the judiciary. As I said, when she actually reported this. Polly Toynbee, the woman that is, again, chronologically, the most senior person in terms of age in Fleet Street among women writers, she visited the county court called the Clerkenwell and Shoreditch County Court, which is the name of the court that is the product of an amalgamation of two previously separate courts. One was the Shoreditch County Court, which was subsumed under the Clerkenwell Court. And she wrote allegedly about the numbers of people being evicted by landlords. On every aspect of the system, the judiciary, Polly Toynbee was ignorant and stupid and ill-informed. So when Patrick Coburn talks about press freedoms, what press is he referring to? What press is he defending? And Martin Wolf, when he talks about lying by the press, is he including the likes of Polly Toynbee? I don't think so. Because he is talking about Tucker Carlson having been sacked by Murdoch's Fox News in the aftermath of the settlement that Murdoch was forced to make, enter into the settlement with the Dominion voting system, who had brought the defamation action. We go back to Emily Maitlies and her piece in the Sunday Times. I worry how much my Andrew interview hurt his daughters. How the fuck? It is never the case that anyone who interviews a subject, that is a person involved in a story or an event, then has other aspects of the story talking about that individual's family and the effect the publication has or might have had on the well-being of that family. It is never done. So why is she being given the space by the Sunday Times to peddle this obscene supplication, servility to the royal family and promoting herself as part of the brand that she has created for herself as a career? My Andrew interview. That interview was completely rubbish. It didn't produce anything new. It didn't produce anything truthful, except that Emily Maitlies has been able to refer to it as an achievement. The only thing that she could justifiably claim to be referring to about that was that she was doing it on the BBC. If she didn't do it on the BBC, she would not have reached the number of people that she has reached and is still reaching. And the people that she says were among the, or in the what she called team that interviewed Andrew Windsor. That kind of detail, that kind of information about the team is never done, never seen. So what she is doing is contradicting the real message about Andrew Windsor that interview actually is part of. The real message was that he was a rapist, that he was a liar, and that he did abuse the teenager Virginia Roberts, and then he did abuse other girls along with the co-abuser Jeffrey Epstein that he was complicit with, he was colluding with, and he was committing the crimes with. I mean, Emily Maitlis also has a very serious reason for not being given that kind of platform, especially after Robert Maxwell's daughter Ghislaine Maxwell being found guilty and being sent to prison. So the fact that the Sunday Times has given Emily Maitlis this platform that it has given shows that there is something else at work. It's not about her worrying about the welfare of Andrew's daughters. It is somebody is deciding in the Sunday Times that Emily Maitlis needs to be installed as a investigative, independent-minded journalist of such high stature that she obviously craves to be treated as. It's not the substance, because the settlement that Andrew Windsor was forced to make against the claim of Virginia Roberts is a settlement, just like Rupert Murdoch's settlement with the Dominion voting system, is a settlement very hefty, involving hefty money payment. And this one in particular has a condition attached to it, attached to the agreement, that Andrew Windsor will not repeat the denial that he raped her. Now, this is something that is known to Emily Maitlis, evil Maitlis, because the settlement has been more than a year now. So why, after more than a year of that settlement, which had a very rigorous condition in that he would not repeat the denial that he raped her, why is Emily Maitlis still giving surreptitiously yet another platform to the rapist and criminal? So there is no honesty, there is no truth seeking, there is no freedom seeking, freedom in the press Petrikovan. And Martin Wolf, he knows that Emily Maitlis is lying, but he wouldn't name her, he wouldn't point the finger at her. So we shall be talking about all of these in due course, of course. The racist Helena Kennedy, who is a licensed law trader, Scottish born licensed law trader, and is promoted as a KC, that is King's Counsel, is a licensed law trading barrister. The racist Helena Kennedy was in the lift when I got into the lift near the Palace of Westminster, I think sometime in 1996. I was on my way to attend a meeting that I had come to know was happening about, roughly speaking, the agenda that was on the offer, on the table of the political parties, because that was 1996, the year before the 1997 general election. When I got in, the only other person was this woman that I had seen on television. I knew exactly who she was, but I had no contact with her, and I made no gestures to her, to herself. But I noticed that she was winking at me. Why would she wink at me? As far as she was concerned, a total stranger, and as far as I'm concerned, she was a total stranger, even though I had seen her images. Why would she wink at me? Winking is a sexual gesture, without any doubt. Why was Helena Kennedy winking at me? I've asked her to apologize for doing that, and she has not apologized. Now, in the current issue of the Private Lie magazine, there is a piece, the leading piece about her is that she is lying about the stance on royalty, the royal monarchy. This is the one it says on page 7, kissing the rod. And I shall read the whole thing. Constitutional change is an idea whose time has come. This is a quotation. Declared Helena Kennedy, QC, as she then was, in her preface to Power and the Throne, a 1994 collection of essays on the monarchy published by Vintage in association with the campaign group Charter 88. For a long time, it was fashionable to regard the palace as a charming irrelevance, good for tourism and diplomacy, and cheap at twice the price, Kennedy wrote. But an institution which is accorded prominence and mythical status, which surrounds itself with the unworthy notion of aristocracy, keeps the hierarchical nature of our society firmly in place. It is understandable that many see it as the fountainhead of snobbery and class division, creating a corrosive culture with its defenders often seen sycophantically allied to its continuance because patronage is one of the pegs which secures its hold. That is an unquote. This is a whole paragraph full of quote. That one quote. Well, two quotes. Yes, indeedy! Exclamation mark, says the Private Lie. Last week, Buckingham Palace announced that at Westminster Abbey on the 6th of May, the Queen Consort's rod will be carried in the coronation procession and then presented to Her Majesty by none other than Baroness Kennedy, KC, as she now is. Now, that lying criminal, racist criminal, after winking at me in the lift, walked to the venue of the same meeting that I attended and I was going to attend. And it turns out that she was chairing the fucking event. And during the hour or so of the many people speaking, I frequently raised my hand. And this racist cunt persistently refused to give me the option to make a contribution at all. All the other people are white. And so when I demanded and I stood up and I told her off, condemned her as being racist, she told me off by saying that she had been doing this kind of thing and helping black people for many years. What the fuck? She could not have been doing anything of that sort whatsoever. I have been a legal advocate and student comprehensively of the laws, constitutional laws, for far longer than she has been fucking alive. She reminded me in her racist claim of the racist from New Zealand, Des Wilson the shit, who had claimed at the St. Bride's Church of Fleet Street in the 1980s when I challenged the role of the charity called Shelter. That he, this racist cunt, Des Wilson from New Zealand, had been helping me, my people. Fuck him. So, how dare these racists come up with these kind of claims? And the answer is that they're racist. And racism is a deeper malaise, illness, sickness, evil than it is admitted to be. So we shall be talking about all of these and other aspects in due course, of course. We're ending this one at 1 hour and 4 minutes approximately, or just under 4 minutes approximately, on Saturday, the 6th of May 2023. What time are we finishing this particular edition? Is it 0813 GMT?